We all know that today, China is a global superpower. But to really understand its present, and especially its future, you've got to understand a deeply painful past that it has never, ever forgotten. So in this explainer, we're going to explore how a century of trauma didn't just shape a nation, it's actively fueling its ambitions today.
Okay, first things first, let's just take a moment to grasp the sheer scale of China's power today. I mean, the numbers are absolutely staggering, and they really set the stage for the big question we're asking. How on earth did this happen?
Get a load of this number, $18.5 trillion. That's China's GDP right now. And to put that into perspective for you, it's bigger than the economies of Japan, Germany, India, and the UK combined. Yeah. And by some metrics, like purchasing power, a lot of experts already consider it number one.
Now this number, this represents naval power. With over 370 warships, the People's Liberation Army Navy is, believe it or not, the largest in the world by the number of ships. That is a crystal clear signal of its global military ambitions.
And you know, it's not just about the old school metrics of money and military. China has become this absolute force in the technologies that are going to define our century. We're talking about building the world's biggest 5G network, leading the charge in artificial intelligence, and pouring billions into renewable energy.
So this really is the core question, isn't it? How does a country that was once dismissively called the sick man of Asia go from being pushed around by foreign powers to challenging for the top spot globally? Well, the answer starts with a period of really profound national trauma.
And look, this isn't just some historical phrase. It is a foundational idea in modern China. It points to a period from about 1839 to 1949 where China was just dominated, invaded, and frankly exploited by foreign powers.
This timeline just shows a relentless, painful pattern. It all kicked off with the Opium Wars, where Britain basically forced China to accept the opium trade to fix its own trade deficit. This led to one crushing military defeat after another. The magnificent Summer Palace was looted and burned to the ground by British and French troops, then a humiliating loss to a newly modernized Japan, and it all culminated in a brutal 8-year-long occupation. Every single event was just another deep cut, making this national wound even worse.
The Opium Wars really highlight the core problem here. You see, China, which for centuries saw itself as the literal center of the world, had fallen catastrophically behind in technology. I mean, look at this. While Britain was rolling in with steamships and modern rifles, China was trying to defend itself with swords and ancient firearms. This wasn't just a military loss. It was a head-on collision between an industrial empire and a traditional one.
This quote just perfectly captures what happened next. Once China's military weakness was laid bare for all to see, foreign powers, we're talking Britain, France, Russia, Germany, Japan, they all just swooped in. They set up these spheres of influence, which basically meant they controlled China's ports, its railways, and its resources, all without ever having to formally colonize the whole country.
So this century of trauma, it just couldn't last. It led straight to the collapse of a 2,000-year-old imperial system, and then a chaotic civil war. And out of that chaos, a new, powerful, and unified state was about to emerge. On October 1st, 1949, Mao Zedong stood in Tiananmen Square and made this famous declaration. It was meant to signal the definitive end of the century of humiliation. For the first time in 100 years, China was united under a strong central government that made one key promise: to never, ever let the country be humiliated again. But this is where history becomes a really powerful political tool. The Communist Party took this narrative and baked it right into the national education system. It became a cornerstone of modern Chinese identity, and it serves as the ultimate reason for its rule. The message is simple and powerful. Only the party is strong enough to protect China and guarantee its dignity.
But hey, political unity alone doesn't make you a superpower. After Mao died, a new leader, Deng Xiaoping, came in with some seriously pragmatic reforms that would unleash an economic miracle, one unlike anything the world had ever seen before.
This was the absolute masterstroke. In simple terms, Deng's government basically said, look, we are keeping absolute political control, but we are going to unleash the power of capitalism on our economy. They set up special economic zones, they rolled out the red carpet for foreign investment, and they let private businesses flourish. It was a totally radical idea, a complete break from old-school communist thinking. And the results? Well, they were just unbelievable. From an economy of just $150 billion in 1978, it just exploded. By 2010, China had already blown past Japan to become the world's second largest.
This chart really shows you the sheer speed of that change, a climb to the top unlike anything we've seen in modern history. And this, right here, might be the single most important achievement of that whole economic boom. Back in 1990, the vast majority of people in China lived in extreme poverty. Today, that number is less than 1%. It is the largest and fastest reduction of poverty in all of human history. Just think about that.
So, this brings us full circle, because all that economic and military power is deeply, deeply connected to the past. The memory of the century of humiliation isn't just a history lesson in a textbook, it is the very engine driving China's ambitions today.
Think about it. Why is China modernizing its military at a breakneck speed? To make damn sure it can never be invaded again. Why the obsessive push for tech self-reliance, to go from made in China to created in China? It's to break free from depending on the very same Western powers that once dominated it. The massive Belt and Road Initiative, their aggressive foreign policy, it all traces right back to a desire to reverse the humiliations of the past.
This is the official term for it all, and it's championed by President Xi Jinping. The Chinese dream isn't just about getting rich. It's about national rejuvenation. It's about restoring China to what it sees as its rightful place as a global leader. And finally, closing the book on that century of humiliation.
And so, this leaves us with the ultimate question for our time, really. As China cements its status as a superpower, will its actions be driven by a hunger for the respect it was denied for so long, or by a need to settle old scores? How the world answers that is going to depend on understanding the deep, painful history we've just walked through.